Welcome to Boroughs Burbs with hosts John Engel and Roberto Cabrera. Over the next hour, you're going to learn some insider knowledge that will help you overcome and strategize in the cutthroat world of real estate. Now, here are your hosts, John and Roberto.
It's 3 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Boroughs and Burbs number 88. I'm John Engel of Douglas Elliman in Connecticut, and
I'm Roberto Cabrera with Brown Harris Stevens in New York.
West 78th Street headquarters?
Fifth.
Oh, I always get that wrong.
You always get that wrong.
And today we have three very special guests. We're doing the show on Aspen. We've got Torre, the three-time mayor of Aspen. We've got Aspen's greatest promoter, founder of the Jazz Aspen Snowmass Festival, now in its 29th year?
31st.
31st. See, I always get these numbers wrong. 31st, selling you short, Jim. And
I've got
Richard
that was
Berkshire.
pretty good. You're real close.
And Richard Berkshire, the top Aspen realtor. And he's going to tell us about the Aspen market. Before I begin, I just want to thank our sponsor, Grace Farms. If you're a realtor, you ought to provide Grace Farms coffee and tea as your closing gift. That's what I do. Most importantly, I want to talk about Grace Farms. They're doing work for Design for Freedom. That's their new initiative, and they're trying to make sure that the materials that go into building construction, our home, our offices, are ethically sourced. So please go visit gracefarms.org to find out more about Grace Farms, the organization, the Design for Freedom initiative, and this fabulous closing gift that you can give to your clients. If you use coupon code BURBS, you're going to get 10% your first off on your first order. With that, let's begin. Mayor Torre, can you tell us what makes Aspen Aspen?
Thank you. First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's nice to see all you guys. Even if it is remote, we should be together, but this is great. What makes Aspen Aspen? You know, I start with the place. You know, just by sheer location, its natural amenities. During the winter, you know, we're butted up against the Continental Divide. So during the winter, we're one road in, one road out. And that gives us a real remote, a lot of untouched natural surroundings. So place is number one. And then you've got the people that are here. You know, this is a really powerful place, and the people that are attracted to Aspen because of the natural amenities, but also because of the culture that we have here, the people are absolutely phenomenal. So I take the place, the people, and then I think that has a power of itself. You know, I think about the folks that have founded modern Aspen, and whether that's the adventuring miners and the explorers that were coming over here, to the Pepkes who brought in a new cultural uprising here, and then the ski company and the Aspen Skiing Company and what we do here in Aspen. It's just a powerful place that really empowers people to, I don't know, maybe push their own boundaries and get a lot out of life. I think that's what makes Aspen Aspen.
You know, it's interesting. I was told that unlike what people think, that Aspen is actually a town before it's a ski resort.
Yeah, you know, there is quite a community here, a long history, a storied history, you know, incorporated in 1891, the city of Aspen. So, I mean, absolutely, there is a thriving community here, wonderful school system here. And then again, you know, so many activities and amenities for all ages.
How big is Aspen?
We talk about our population being 7,000 people, and we talk about our area of being 4 square miles.
Wow.
7,000 people or households?
7,000 residents, 7,000, you know, as counted as adult residents.
Who you live there year round?
Correct.
Okay. And does it swell up in the winter with, I guess, transients?
Winter and summer.
Okay.
You probably would think that the summer probably sees a little bit more because we've got the accessibility of the outdoors and camping, and those folks that are coming and passing through, like you said, but able to stay outside of accommodations. So yeah, we swell up to about 30,000.
Wow, that's a big
And that's true in the winter and in the summer. You're saying,
Absolutely.
unlike Palm Beach, which the concentration is winter, and the Hamptons, and the concentration is summer, you've got two high seasons.
Absolutely.
And they're equal.
Absolutely.
Okay.
people come for the winter and they stay because of the summer.
That's what we say.
That's what they say.
And Jim, you've been there now 32 years of the festival, but you got there before the festival. You didn't just show up and create a festival.
Well, yes and yes. I actually did show up and create a festival, but I had started to travel to Aspen far like 30 years before I did that. My parents were, they were people who fell in love with Aspen because of the summer and not the winter. And they discovered actually Aspen in 1959. And there were actually New Yorkers who had decamped from New York after World War II and went to South Florida to make a new life for themselves, raise a family. And all of that happened in the 1950s. And after about 10 years of sweating profusely in the summertime, this is my mother specifically, who was busy raising 3 rambunctious boys while my father worked 18 hours a day in the restaurant. She announced to him one day that if he didn't allow her to find some place for us to go in the summertime and escape the heat in Miami, that she would just, you can finish the rest, you can imagine the rest of the sentence. I wouldn't say it on the air, but he immediately did what a wise man would do and said, honey, you just go right out, just you find some place for us to go.
And she picked something that's the opposite.
Yes.
Of Miami.
And so what Miami had in the 1950s was an abundance of sunshine and hot weather. And what she was looking for was cool weather and something that was missing in Miami in the 1950s, which was culture and smart people who got together and talked about ideas. So she felt that she was marooned in South Florida without culture or ideas. And so she started to look around for a place where the weather was different and that they had something going on. And she stumbled onto something called a travel magazine. And while thumbing through it, she loved to tell this story later in life, she saw a little blurb. And when I say little, I mean it was little, it was just that big. And it was a little headline and it said, "Great minds and great music meet in Rocky Mountain Shangri-La." And that was the headline. And then she leaned forward and she saw a picture which has been reprinted, or some version of it, which was Aspen Mountain in the summertime with the cobalt blue sky behind it. And so that was the image. She said, well, that looks like the Rocky Mountains. And what is this about music and ideas? And so that led her to discover the early Aspen Institute and the Aspen Music Festival in school. And so they went to Aspen in 1959 or 60, around there. And they went for a week. They stayed at the Meadows and they were completely enchanted by what they experienced. In fact, after the 4-day trip that it took to get from South Miami to Aspen in 1960, 4 full days. It was a plane to Chicago, and that was a full day. And then you went to a hotel, and then the next day you got into the Union Pacific Railroad, which was a 2-day trip across the Great Plains to Denver. And then you got out in Denver, and then you got on a bus that took you up to a place called Glenwood Springs. And then you changed to another bus, and that bus went up the dirt road called Highway 82 and dropped you off right in front of where the Wheeler Opera House is. And after that 4-day trip, when they got out of the bus, and my mom, and what happened was, at that time in the 1950s, right where the Wheeler is and the Hyman Avenue Mall, that was the original dormitories for the Aspen Music Festival in school, where they lived and where they practiced. So after this 4-day trip, they got out of the bus, and my mom looks up and saw that beautiful blue sky and the sound of violins filling the air. And she just turned to my father and said, "Arthur, you're going to have a hard time getting me to ever go any goddamn place again for the rest of my life in the summer," just like that. And she said, "They can have Europe," or something to that effect. And so she, that was it. She was the one. And then they Aspen just changed their lives because they started to spend more time in the summer. And I was just a lucky kid who got to visit them and fall in love with Aspen. And they were all about seminars at the Institute and Sunday afternoon at the music tent, and the people that they met were into those things. And it was just people who have these interests. And so I think it really goes back to Elizabeth Papke. Modern Aspen is all about 3 words that have been overused everywhere, but it really did happen in Aspen: mind, body, spirit. This was the genius of Elizabeth Papke. She saw and planted the seeds of not 1, not 2, but 3 institutions that were all about an aspirational vision of the higher use of the mind, the best culture, the brightest people. And then the ski company, which was found to celebrated this magnificent, great, gorgeous place. And so Aspen became this place that really had all these 3 things going. Yes, winter. Yes, summer. And then I eventually, years later, I got into the music business after college, and that's another whole long story. But it was from that I eventually pulled all of my passions together and decided to not be a musician, but be an organizer of a festival. And I know the perfect place to do a jazz festival, because they got a classical festival, but they don't have a jazz festival, but they do have a tent. And in the late 19th,
it looks like Woodstock. Is this
well,
like,
that's the whole, now you're jumping ahead here 30 years. You have to.
I mean, it looks like a lot of people.
That's 10,000. That's 10,000. If you look right in the middle, where the white, this one. That's the same site we've been in for Labor Day weekend, which is the festival that confuses people. Doesn't confuse them. It's become the biggest part of what we do, but they'll look at it and say, "What does that have to do with jazz?" And the answer is everything and nothing. The artists that perform there are distinctly not jazz artists. They're pop and rock and country and all manner of artists. But the fuel that festival generates is what allows us to do all of the other work that we do with jazz music education, small venues, music in the schools of the Valley, all scholarship summer program for gifted young jazz artists, the Jazz Cafe, which is a pop-up music club that's been in various places, and then our great dream that we're working on now, which is getting more and more real, to build a permanent venue right there in the heart of downtown Aspen, not 1 block away from where my mother got out of the bus 60 years ago or whatever it was.
That venue that we were looking at, how far away is that from the 4 square mile radius?
That's Snowmass. The big venue is in Snowmass. 8 miles.
Close, super close.
8 miles, yeah. It's very close. I mean, Aspen Snowmass are really considered, they're the ski company, and really the town in many ways markets them as one. It's Aspen in writing, visually it's Aspen Snowmass.
How long has the Aspen Institute been? When was it founded? Like, I mean, you're saying it was there when you're
no, Elizabeth Papke got it started. I believe it was the late 40s or 48, 49, 50.
1948.
Yeah.
Mayor, how do you feel about 10,000 people all basically drinking beer on your lawn and hanging out at a music festival? Is this good for Aspen? Is this on brand?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Absolutely. On brand, Aspen is the brand of living, celebrating, invigorating. Absolutely. The Jazz Aspen Snowmass Festival is, a perennial favorite. I mean, it is a part of what we do. It punctuates the end of the summer for us. Yeah, absolutely. We love it. You know, we used to enjoy the Jazz Fest, the June Fest in a park here in downtown Aspen. You know, it's taken on a new and really exciting format that spreads it all around town. But absolutely, you know, we enjoy having concerts. Music is definitely a big part of the lifestyle that's here in Aspen.
Did you pick the Foo Fighters to headline this year, or is that Jim's call?
You know,
Yeah,
it's funny. If I could have, I would have. So
Me
you know,
too.
he knew something about my favorites, but yeah.
Yeah, we have a team of people within the organization that do this. The Foo Fighters were, of course, you know, a very, very big band, probably, you know, as bigger, you could say, than any that we've ever had. But we've had a lot of big bands at this festival going back to the early 2000s. We had Dylan and Santana, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joe Cocker. We had a lot of the veteran, the older, what are called heritage artists. But now we've stuck around so long that we've almost outlived them, and they've outlived us. There's not so many. So of course, organizations and festivals eventually their audience changes, and the what they program changes a little bit. So we cover, I would say, if I could go back like to when I was a kid, something called the Fuller Brushman, who showed up and said, you know, what do you want today? We have a variety of this and we have a variety of that. We're really trying to cover, and I think overall have done a good job of cultivating a diverse audience, and that's through the programming that we have. And as Torre mentioned, this June Festival, which is how it all started. It was just a little June Festival in the 2,000-seat Benedict tent in 1991 with Ramsey Lewis and the Modern Jazz Quartet, and Tuck and Patty is the big, so to speak, the artist that were starting it, and a gala at the Hotel Jerome with Nancy Wilson. It just started down there very innocently, really. And now years later, full circle, it's come back into Aspen with it's been reinvented for maybe the 5th time. And now it's a collection of small venues, something like what you would call a club crawl, where there are 10 to 12 venues, all very close by. Aspen, strangely enough, even though it's in the middle of the mountains, is absolutely flat. So it's a fantastic walking.
When do I come if I want to do this 7-venue festival?
It's the longest days of the year, right there at the summer solstice, June 22nd to 25th.
You have any seats left? Is it all sold out?
No, it's not sold out. There's room, and it's wonderful because it's not about a fixed reserved seat. What it's about is a wristband that's around you, and you just float. You literally go from, hey, this is great, honey, let's go check out this jazz band or this blues band. Cool,
okay,
let's do that. And then after 35 minutes, you get an elbow on your side and you go, I just got a text from Phyllis, and she told me that there's this insane band from Uganda that's blowing up over here. And then you heard from somebody else, oh, I missed them today, but Big Sam's Funky Nation from New Orleans is going crazy over at down at the Sterling. So it's all close and it's spontaneous, and it's a really, really, really fun format. It rewards people, I would say, who are by nature ADD, and we have a lot of them, and people who just want to move. They want to experience. They want to, how about this? How about that? I want some more. Let me taste this. Let me taste that. What are you doing?
A reality check
doing
here
later?
I need a reality check from Richard, Berkshire. There's one road going in and one road going out. We already heard that Jim's mother came with the family station wagon, 3-day trip from Miami, finally pulls in with one road. Do you just stand there giving out your card on the one road, which you said opened today? So I'm trying to imagine, how do people get there these days, unlike Jim's mother, who drove the station wagon from Miami? How do people get there? And, you know, and why do they stay?
But you need to qualify that, because I understand you guys have the 2nd largest jet airport like in the world. And the white elephant in the room is it's an expensive place to be. How does the regular Joe also get there? The guy, you know, the normal people, and can they afford to come? Like I have this perception in New York, like of St. Bart's and certain different places. Aspen's like, Well, I don't know where I'll stay and I'm not sure how much it's going to cost me. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Of course, thanks. Good question, John and Roberto. I'm going to take your idea of standing there with a business card, maybe my digital card at the entrance. I know some agents do stand at the airport, the private airport, and do that, and it works successfully. To make a very long story short, under 30 seconds, my parents did the same thing in the late 60s, ended up buying a condo. They came to ski, and my parents were not hippies, but they really liked hanging out with them. My father always wore a blue blazer, sometimes a double-breasted, and everybody got dressed up for cocktail hour, but the whole scene here was extraordinary in the 60s and 70s. And then my sister and I learned to ski here starting in the early 70s. After a stint in college in Chicago, and it took a long time to get back here because my heart is here. And how people get here, the most common thing I hear is somebody, I'm in my late 50s, is somebody saying, I worked there for a year right after college, I should have stayed. My girlfriend was back at, I went to grad school, whatever it was, my father owned a business and he made me come back. Whatever it was, that's extremely common. And I probably hear it once a week. And the other story, which Jim probably could share better, is the people that are driving through and their car breaks down and they never leave, which is a pretty common way. Starting in the 90s, the money started coming, the homes got bigger, and it's continued.
Clearly, you
way.
don't have enough car mechanics to fix all those cars, and everybody stays.
We do have a few, most are down valley. So we do have bedroom communities, which are considerably, let's just call them more reasonable, still very high prices, but more reasonable. And that's where a lot of folks leave, especially if they get married and have kids and a dog and a yard and only have $1 million, you have to move down valley a bit. We're still a second home or a third, fourth, or fifth home community, which is the private jets. But regular folks such as myself live here and are not leaving.
And just to clarify, John, because you asked, or Roberto, maybe about the airport, it's a commercial airport that we have. It's not only available to people who own jets. It is a very, very busy, it has something called the ABO, Aspen Base Operations, which definitely caters to private jets, but United and America and Delta and other airlines you may have heard of do service Aspen. And there are, in fact, now direct, I think it was John that asked about direct flights. Aspen has direct jet service in the winter and the summer from San Francisco, from LA, from Chicago, and
New York,
Texas. No, New York is not direct into Aspen. For that, you need your own, the 2-hour flights. They fly a plane called the CRJ, and its range is about, a flight time is about 2.5 hours. I think they seat about 90 people. And they fly winter and summer directly to a couple of the major metropolitan areas, which feed people to Aspen. Like I said, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Houston, Dallas. Those are the big ones.
So I see on the map the Aspen Airport in the northwest of town, and I see downtown Aspen in the southeast, section. Where is the really expensive $16 million houses I've been hearing about, and where, as Richard put it, do the regular people live on this map?
So good questions. We do have what we call a billionaire's row, which would be Red Mountain, Willoughby Way, looking back over the town. Correct. We happen to call our downtown, it's called the core, the business core. It's very small. It's about 6 blocks by 4 blocks, right at the base of Aspen Mountain, which we call Ajax. And traditionally, the most expensive homes are on Red Mountain or right on the Roaring Fork River. And that has changed, even pre-COVID. But people have expanded east and west all the way to Snowmass, Woody Creek. Let's just call that about 10 minutes away. Extraordinary properties, especially on the 4 mountains if they're ski in, ski out. A home just sold for 65 million. It closed this week, right on the mountain. It's quite nice,
So
as you can
Richard,
imagine.
Richard, being it's such a small place, you're talking about 6,000 residents, like kind of like I guess it would almost like voting residents that are there. From a standpoint of business for you, like how much inventory is there, and how much construction is happening?
Great questions. And our inventory is down about 60%. We have 119 listings in Aspen. Normally we would have closer to 280 to 300. That was pandemic driven. And the other side is people aren't selling. If they sell, cash out, they have nowhere to go. Our prices keep going up. So some go down valley, there's great golf courses, et cetera, that you can live on and get a larger home.
What's just talking about that, you said golf course, what's the climate like in the summer? Like how warm does it get?
I don't have air conditioning. Torre, Jim, do you have air conditioning?
No.
No, I don't. We're talking about
Paradise, Roberto.
we're talking about 86. If it reaches 86, that's considered really high. It is, again, it's a dry heat, so it's it's got a different feel to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty moderate throughout the year.
And
So in the evenings
Cool.
during the festivals, like what temperatures does it get in the evening?
Yeah, well, in our festival in June, those are, right, we're right at the solstice, so the sun is still up at 9 o'clock, by the time it's over. I mean, first of all, mountain weather in general, warm and dry in the summer times, but occasionally it can be a little bit cooler. So, I would say in general, it's very comfortable. I would go out to our June festival. If I was arriving at 5 o'clock, I would carry some kind of jacket over my elbow, and I would plan to put it on somewhere probably around 9, a light jacket, and that's about it. And then Labor Day weekend, the days are shorter. It's just shorter, and it gets, by then there's almost that nip of fall. So by the time the headliner shows start at 7:30, they're over at 9. By 9 o'clock, it's probably 60 by 9 o'clock, not bad.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Perfect is what it is.
So let's talk about some of the challenges pre-COVID, the market pre-COVID and now. It occurs to me that when we've talked to, as a result of COVID, people are starting to work remotely, and a lot of seasonal destinations have become year-round. Now, it sounds like you guys have already adapted to a 2-season year-round, but is there pressure as more people move in, and I'm assuming year-round, or maybe it's all second homes, to build more schools, more infrastructure, and we have growing pains? We're hearing that in Florida, right? Everybody moved to Florida and found that they could work from Florida, and they were only an airplane flight away from their real job, and then they found that they could stay. Are you finding that people are moving in full time and they want more infrastructure, or some of these challenges, Mayor, bypassed you, that this is still a second home for a lot of people and you're not finding those kinds of pressures?
Thanks for that. That's a great question. We've seen it level out a little bit. We definitely had a pandemic rush, more people living here. I'm sure that some of them have relocated full time here, not to the point that it's so impactful on a day-to-day basis. But then the second part of your question is about those demands on infrastructure and the like. Not so much. Roberto asked in his last question about new construction, new development. There's not a whole bunch. We do have a very robust redevelopment community going on right now. But as far as new growth and new development, not so much. So the actual stress and strain on our infrastructure from new residency and the like is not so great. We have really, we've had growth controls in place for a long time that have allowed us to stay at a somewhat of a balanced position. We're very conscientious where we are about, our water supply, our clean air, and those things that we need to live. So, we've done a lot to protect those. We don't have a lot of room for new growth, but to this point, we're pretty well managed and well balanced.
Yeah, in New Canaan right here, we're supposedly 98% developed. There's only 2% left to be developed. And we're having those conversations right now because we're putting together our 5-year plan of or 10-year plan of conservation and development. Do you have that kind of thing dictating the kind of growth that goes on in Aspen?
We have something that we call the Aspen Area Community Plan. And really, I tell you, for anybody that's enjoying this podcast today, and this broadcast, should feel free, go online, thecityofaspen.com. And you can check out the Aspen Area Community Plan. It's a wonderful read. The current iteration is 10 years old, so we're due to update. But yes, we've had kind of a community plan that has helped guide us in those thoughts.
How do you guys deal with zoning, for example? I mean, you have such a, Aspen seems to really have a sense of place and a sense of pedigree and its history. And you can see it by, you look at any of those photographs and you can see it almost looks like, it looks like it's from 100 years ago. How do you, are there zoning in place? Because I know that don't you guys have like a restoration hardware that's coming in, which is a completely different concept of like what I would think Aspen is like. Do you guys have any sort of guidelines for people who come in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Strict zoning. The restoration hardware proposal and project that they're bringing into some private developments is fitting within the development pattern that was already started. So they're really coming in to projects that were underway. And nothing new. They weren't pushing for any variances in our zoning. So they're fitting in to existing zoning. But absolutely, in our restrictions that we have here, again, they've maintained amazing character. Part of the reason that our prices are so high is not just the scarcity, but the value in them. So we owe a lot of our success to our zoning and to our growth controls. For a lot of people, in a different way that you look at it, maybe that's limiting in some areas, but we really have to be thankful for those that have come before us in putting in controls to maintain this amazing and special place.
It's great. It's really, I heard there's a really great jazz club that's going to be opening up.
That's a rumor.
Rumor?
It's true. It's coming.
Heard it's going to be phenomenal, Jim.
Yeah, it's a good, yeah. So yeah, well, sure, I'd love to talk a little bit about it. So we went under contract actually to purchase it's the last building, I believe, from the 1800s that's standing and has not been redeveloped and turned into basically a public landmark or a public building of some kind. The Wheeler Opera House is the really famous one, which is the City of Aspen property. But we were very fortunate about, now it's 5 years ago, really, in 2018, we were looking for a permanent home for our new club that had been a pop-up series that had become quite popular called the JAS Cafe. And we were looking for a place to do it permanently. We found this property and went under contract in 2018 and spent about 1.5 years working on our plans. And then we're planning on going public with the plans and starting fundraising in the month of March 2020. And so right before we got started, we stopped. But now, since that time, obviously the world has been a dramatic, few years, to say the least. But we've made a great deal of progress on this, and the project is a very simple one. We've given it the moniker "In the Heart of Aspen" and "For the Soul of Aspen," and it's a 4-part project. If you were looking at it and you saw a circle, and we say, how do you describe it? Say, well, it's 4 rooms in one, and it's 4 functions in one, which is to say 1 building. So it's a club for performance. That could be anywhere from 60 to 75 nights a year. Right now, we've done anywhere from 10 to 25, depending on the venues. But once we have a permanent space, winter and summer, you could count on, say Thursday through Saturday consistently, music, live music. That's the first thing. Second thing is that we call it a classroom for education because we have a huge number of music education programs that we do here in the Roaring Fork Valley for public school kids that don't really have a great place at all, if they have any place to rehearse, practice, do a show, all of it. And in fall and spring, particularly when the seasons are low in Aspen, this will be a godsend for our music ed programs. We can allow kids to really stretch out there. So that's the second thing. The third piece of the puzzle is the special events. And we say a gathering place. And, you know, during COVID, we all had a huge life lesson in what would happen and what life would feel like if we could not gather. And one of the gather socially, gather to do any kind of a human interaction that goes on when you get the heat, if I could use that word, of 150 people in a room sitting together, doing something for a common purpose, whether it's listening or it could be a meeting. We expect that when this building comes online, the Aspen Institute, the Aspen Ideas Festival, other not-for-profit organizations would want to use it. It's a downtown gathering space for 100 to 300 people, and there's nothing of that size in downtown. And then the last part of it is a recording studio. Very, very exciting for us to have a full level professional recording studio, but our thrust with this is as an education tool for our students, again, to teach them all the different aspects of the music business you can get into besides being a musician, but also a place that we can record live, broadcast, and eventually A-level artists. It would be high enough quality that if Beyonce just happened to be coming to town for a vacation, she could stop by and polish a couple of tracks, walk in with her digital thing that fit in her hand and say, I got my singer here and I'd like to work on, you know, a couple of tracks. So 4 things: a club for listening, a classroom for learning, an event space for gathering, and a recording studio. So that's what the project is. We've gotten with the help of Mayor Torre and many people. It's a long process to do development of any kind, commercial or residential.
When's it opening?
2 years from when construction begins. And I actually just got a phone call this morning that it's looking real promising for the permit to be given to the developers so that they spend a year doing what's called building the white box. And then we spend a year doing the build out of the interior.
So Beyonce, if you're listening, Jim has you on the schedule for opening night. So make sure you call Jim and get on the schedule.
It might be Mariah Carey, actually.
Yeah. Actually, maybe they probably went. Our room might be just a little too small for them, to be perfectly honest. But you know, anybody can go small if they want to, you know, so we'll see. But in any case, the project is real, and we've been raising money quietly for a few years now, but we've reached about $19 million in pledges on our $25 million goal to pay for the real estate and do the build out. So we're definitely making progress. And I can say honestly, you know, it's always interesting to talk to people who have their impressions of Aspen, who have not physically been there, because Aspen is a place that you hear 1,000 things about, all kinds of things. And by the way, Tori can attest to this even more than me. This is a notoriously, famously difficult place to get your plans to develop and build anything approved. It's the nature of
you.
Yes, no.
Even you.
Oh, definitely. But what I'm going to say is that we've really have really felt, honestly, such positive.
Mayor Torre is giving you a hard time to build another
never.
music venue.
Never. That's what I'm saying. It's been, I feel, you know, people, when I tell people we're trying to build something, they look at me like, oh God, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, you know, like you tell them your father is sick. Oh God, how long has it been like that? And I say, no. No, it's positive. People actually really are excited. I really do feel that we're going to make a great contribution downtown, right there with the Red Onion. And next to that new restoration hardware, it's going to be just
All
an
right.
enormous infusion of life.
I'm
and
sold.
energy.
I'm coming. And Parry Drake is in the audience, and he's saying he's sold. He wants to come to Beaver Creek. He's got $1 million in his pocket. He wants to know, Richard, have you got a spot for Parry Drake in Beaver Creek?
Beaver Creek's quite a distance from here, over by Vale and Avon. I can do Snowmass.
Okay. For $1
Sure,
million?
we can get you a studio in Aspen for a little bit more.
Okay.
Yes.
With a view?
Yeah, exactly. But Beaver Creek is part of Vale Resorts, and it's 6 miles from Vale, long way from here by driving, short as the crow flies.
Well, so educate us. I now have gotten a distinct impression that you are not just about snow, that you're also about music and so much more. But who are the big competitors and what's the difference? I have heard of Vale. I've heard of Beaver Creek. I mean, are they competitors, or is that a totally different crowd?
They most definitely are competitors. They have large hotels, branded hotels, and great skiing and a lot of acres and a lot of events. I think the character is different because Vale is a created village in the late 60s. So is Snowmass, but Snowmass has its own character. I have very good friends, high school, college, since then, that only go to Steamboat. They don't like Aspen. That's okay. Same with Telluride, same with Lake Tahoe. But to your point, when people come here, they realize it's nothing or not completely like what they thought it was. They have a great time. They meet the nicest people, and there's a heck of a lot to do here in the arts and culture and outdoors, not just skiing, and in Torre's case, skiing and tennis, but the events that go on here are extraordinary, and they're pretty much walking distance everywhere, which is
And they're
the
not
case.
crowded. You said earlier that some of those other places have a reputation for being crowded at peak season. You're not crowded?
It's because of access. So Vale is an hour and a half and a little bit from Denver, 2 hours from DIA, large airport. We're 3.5 hours from Denver, 4 hours from the airport. And it is just a little bit more difficult to get here and a little bit more expensive to get here. And that affects who actually comes.
It keeps the riffraff out, is what I'm hearing.
I wouldn't use those words.
Richard, you said that some of those people say they don't like Aspen. What about Aspen doesn't appeal to them? Like it's too small. It's what?
Great question. There's been a shift. I've been here 18 years full time, been vacationing here since the early 70s. And it has changed. And it's just the brands of the stores that are national and international brands are here, and they pay exorbitant lease rates to be on street level in our small core. And there used to be more local jewelers, local artists, etc. We still have them. One-off restaurants, we still have them. We really don't have big brands and restaurants, a few that have come in here and started multiple restaurants. And of course, we have a St. Regis and a Little Nell and a few others, Weston and, a Viceroy and a Marriott and Snowmass. The things that have changed, I think the people are still here that make Aspen Aspen. Some of them might live down valley, meaning in Basalt and Carbondale, and commute in for work or to do the fun things.
Jim, let me ask you something. You had been there for a long, long time. And I know that when I had gone to St. Bart's, that St. Bart's is a certain way, a certain culture. And people used to say, look, people have always come here and they fall into the gear of what St. Bart's is all about. And I'm relating it to St. Bart's. I tend to go there a lot, and it has an exclusive feel, yet there's a certain speed to it. And this past trip when we went, so many of the people, the guy, who does the massage, the people who live there, and because of the generation of wealth that has happened over that past couple of years, and really propelled by what happened with COVID and everybody's going away, people have all said, it's just changed. It's different. Do your parents, or do you, like you yourself, who've been there 70s, 80s, are you like, do you yearn for the way it kind of used to be? Because now it is different. There's so much wealth it's going everywhere in the world. I think everybody's experiencing it, but is it happening there?
It hasn't changed my attitude and my love for this town, but also the whole valley. Yes, things have changed. It does everywhere that's discovered, and it's been going on 60 years here. But there's still Colorado folk, Aspen folk that are still here. And that's what makes this town special. And it's the events and the people and the one-off stores. I think anybody can go to Prada, wherever you are. Our Prada might be a little bit different in selection, but the town Aspen is still Aspen. And I truly mean that.
I think the analogy is great. For example, St. Bart's is very small, about the same size as Aspen, and it takes 2 flights to get there. And so you can either go to the easy place, which is St. Martin, has the second biggest airport in the Caribbean, or you have to take an extra flight. You have to make an extra effort and an extra few hours to get to more exclusive St. Bart's. I feel like it sounds like you're telling me the same thing. You have to make more of an effort to get to Aspen, but it's worth it if you do. And when you get there, it's a little less crowded. It's a little less bustle. It's a little nicer. I mean, you keep talking about the people.
4th of July week and New Year's week are very crowded. The rest of the time, not so much relative to other ski resorts. But Jim and Torre can discuss their personal feelings on what's changed and what hasn't and what's gotten better. And better in my mind as a broker, but also as a person that loves Aspen, it's opportunity to do things, to walk around. And I would not say that we are exclusive by any means. Yes, there's a few private restaurants and clubs, but very few. And frankly, everybody bar hops and restaurant hops and gallery hops, and everybody's welcome. And some folks are wearing their ski clothes at 9 o'clock at night after a couple opera drinks, and some people are dressed up to the nines. And you can go anywhere. I wear a sport coat in like once or two venues. The rest of the time, you could do whatever you want. You're welcome everywhere. And Jim and Torre can give their 3 cents, I guess.
Well, I'd like to add a couple of things to this. First of all, yes, the world, this is less about what's happened in Aspen than what's happened in the world, and what was completely driven from COVID, and then these large patterns of how people could live differently. It accelerated something which was certainly going on. Aspen is, it's more expensive now than it was 30 years ago. So is downtown New York. So is St. Bart's. So are a lot of very highly desirable places. I don't think Aspen is any different in this way whatsoever. I do think, however, that Aspen does have something truly that other places don't. And when you talk about, I'm just speaking of the narrowly of let's just say resort mountain communities and resorts, specifically let's just take in Colorado. Aspen is by far the most imitated. All of these other towns have tried to find a way to be like Aspen. And what does that mean? It means what goes on. Richard was talking about this. Here's the deal in Aspen. There are 10, not 1, not 2, 10 functioning, robust not-for-profit arts organizations. 10, okay? You're not gonna find 5 in any other place, let alone 10. There's a symphony. There's a ballet. Oh, there's a dance company. There's the jazz festival. There's the art museum. The Anderson Ranch, where people make art. It's really all of these and these are not overnight successes. These are institutions. And I use that word fully understanding what the word means. Things that have been around, that have cultivated audiences, but also supporters. You know, Aspen has a tremendous history of philanthropy. Again, it goes back to dear Elizabeth Papke, who started the ball rolling with the Institute and the Music Festival, which are the grandfather and grandmother, if I could say that, not to be, you know, to be even-handed, of all of the not-for-profits. And those institutions are 75 plus years old. Now, you know, we're in that next tier. We're only 31 years old. But you don't have this in other towns. I don't even think Jackson, which has gotten quite a lot of attention and has certainly attracted uber wealth in the last 5 years. I'm sorry, I don't believe that they have a permanent venue like the Aspen Music Festival, a permanent festival like Jazz Aspen, which has 2, a fixed art museum, 2 dance companies. I'm sorry. This changes the way life is on the ground, and it's a separator. So, you know, the challenges of how a place doesn't feel the same. Yeah, I don't know any place that's fabulous that's as quaint today as it was 30 years ago. But, you know, if you can tell me where it is, maybe I'd like to visit.
Mayor, you don't get to be one of the top 25 fittest mayors in the country by just going to art crawls and concerts. Talk to us about recreation.
You know, it's the same. This conversation's great. I agree. I've been here 30 years. My Aspen is still here. The people, and really I moved here because of the people I met were just amazing. When I moved to Aspen, it was one of the first times that people sincerely said to me, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do in life? And we'll help you get there.
I want to be mayor of Aspen. Okay.
That was not my answer, by the way. But it's just an amazing place full of opportunity and a lot of different strata of life. You know, we have a real community here. We do still have affordable ability here in Aspen. You talk about access to the arts, culture, etc. Access to our great outdoors and recreation is, you know, second to our arts and culture, if there's a second there. I always talk about some of my favorite days are 3 sport days. So if I can get up on the mountain and go skiing or snowboarding, maybe play some tennis, play some golf, or get on my bike, go for I mean, there are days that absolutely just inspire and awe me constantly. You know, I along with being the mayor, I am a tennis professional. I teach tennis for a living, and I'll tell you something. There is not a day that goes by, literally not one, where I don't just take a moment and look around and just go, wow, this place is amazing. So yeah, access to the great outdoors is second to none. It's just amazing here. We have great rivers that are running near us. So for those that are enthusiasts getting out fly fishing or whitewater rafting, these are the things that will never change about Aspen. No matter what we build here, no matter how many people are here, the access to the great outdoors is going to remain, and it's one of our top amenities.
This is great. We only have a couple minutes left. What are our parting thoughts for the future of Aspen? Where are we going? I watch Yellowstone like so many New Yorkers, and we hear about the great, challenge out west between conservation and keeping things the way they were versus progress. So that's what we see on TV. I mean, you want to talk to us about where is Aspen headed?
I think Aspen has an amazing trajectory right now. We are definitely in a place where we are looking to preserve character, but also progress with who we are as a community as well. So we're in a great place. Right now I'm kind of looking out some windows here, and I just am reminded that, we're surrounded on 3 out of 4 sides by national forest. No matter what direction you walk out of downtown Aspen, you're going to be remote within 10 minutes. So, these are the things that are invaluable to us and that they will not change.
Thank you, Mayor Torre. Thank you so much, Jim Horowitz, founder of the Jazz Aspen Snowmass Festival. And thank you so much, Richard Berkshire, for putting this show together and connecting us with these two fabulous Aspenites. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks,
Parting
guys.
words, Richard?
Thanks, John. Thanks.
You want
Roberto.
everybody to come out there and visit you?
I'll get him a rental. I do that as well. Come visit.
Okay.
You'll be holding his card.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, John.
And we'll see you next week on
Thanks,
Boroughs
Roberto.
Burbs 89. And I think we're next week. Yeah, we're in Brooklyn. A whole long way from Aspen. Take
All
that,
clear, great
Mayor
job.
Adams.
All clear. Great job today, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great week.
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
everybody.
All right, I'm going to hit the off on.
You know, you encounter people and they think to themselves like, oh, you know, he's a new guy coming, you know, this is our place. Is it
No.
welcome?
No,
No.
not even
Not
close.
even close.
Not even close. It's just,
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
I wanted to say, this goes back to early when it came up about Vale and Aspen and rivalry and that kind of thing. It's just not the way it is. Aspenites are, I think we all agree that whether you own a home or not, you don't own Aspen. And part of the reason that we're all here is because somebody shared it with us at some point. And we do not, there's no close the gate people here. We are welcoming, we're open. And a big reason for that is because we're excited to share Aspen. Take the festival, for example. I mean, 30 years, how many friends have visited for the Jazz Fest in September? I mean, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, whatever, take my couch, sleep on my floor, whatever it takes, we want you here. And we also want to share what Aspen's about, our respect for our natural surroundings, our constant pursuit of intellect and arts and culture. And then you mix that in with our recreational aspect. It's called the Aspen idea: mind, body, and spirit. And that's what we love to share. So no, you need
I
to come to
appreciate that.
Aspen.
That's great. It's good to know.
and the other thing about Aspen, honestly, and if you have the long range view, it's no different. There's been a spike. There was a rush here, just like there was a rush to Florida and other places when people were figuring out remote work. But as long as I've been coming, 40, 50 years, I'll second and third what Torre said, that the Aspen idea is what continues to attract people. And there's been an enormous number of them. I mean, Aspen is constantly regenerating itself. There's always a new, it's not just a new kid on the block, it's a bunch of people. And for the most part, I think they still come, even if it's a little more expensive than it used to be, they come for these same reasons at the end of the day, or they don't stay. And there's plenty of those too. I mean, there's plenty of transient people who say, I want to come to Aspen, I'm checking it out. And then they're like, no, this actually isn't, that could be anywhere. But I think that, to Torre's point, that the strength of the Aspen idea is what continues to bring people. Most people here got introduced to it somehow, some way by someone else. And it has this quality of its mix of things that's unique enough that it's going to constantly be attracting new people, at least half of which will probably stay.
Wonderful.
Where do they come from, Richard? Are they coming from the East Coast, West Coast? Where are they coming from now?
Our top five have not changed a heck of a lot. It's New York, Chicago, LA, South Florida. And a lot of those folks own properties in all of those areas. But Texas has really come on strong, even before the pandemic, but especially since the pandemic. They loaded up the Escalade and drove up and rented for the summer. And that historically, that did not happen. It did a little bit. And so it's north, south, east, and west. Visitor wise, we have a very healthy international visitor group. They only own just a few percentage of the property here, but there's times during the ski season, especially over, Easter and other holidays, that English is the third language, and Brazil, Argentina, and all over the world actually come here to visit, especially summer and winter. Texas is really, 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 half my clients are from Dallas, Houston, and Austin right now. So
The average price of a house in this area is $2 million in this town, and in the next town over $3 million. When I hear 14,
What town are you in?
Robert, I'm in New Canaan, Connecticut. Greenwich is $3 million
Hi, Roberto.
average.
See you guys.
I know Roberto's got to go.
thank
Bye.
you,
I'll
Roberto.
step off too, guys. I gotta go.
Thank you,
Bye,
Torre.
guys. Have a
Okay,
great day. Thank you.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Torre.
Thank you, Torre.
My last question though is eye-popping 16 million, 14 million average. But can you put that in perspective? I mean, that's not for the entire valley. That's for a part of the valley. When I hear those headlines in Forbes, for the rest of us who talk about $2 and $3 million homes, and Parry, who asked about what's available in the $1 million category, can you talk to us and give us some perspective on what's available?
Of course. So Aspen continues to skyrocket, frankly, in the last 2.5 years. And actually, of the listings, we're averaging for a single family in Aspen over 18 million now. And we're $3,300 a square foot. So if you think a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square feet, which is about how they were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, $3.4 million. Anything less than that needs some work. And the other general number, which is changing slightly, is Snowmass is half the price of Aspen. So we're $3,400 a square foot here for a condo. Single family is about the same, very high end. Homes that are selling have been raising the median and the average. Snowmass is $1,600 a square foot. So you do the calculus by size, number of bedrooms. New development going on there is actually selling very well, very high-end development right in the new base village. And they're selling in the $2,800 a square foot and trying to resell closer to $3,000, which is historically high. And then Mid-Valley, which we'll call Basalt to Carbondale, is half again less than that. So we're down to $600, $800 a square foot, new stuff $1,000 a square. And that's just an easy calculus. Of course, there's exceptions above and below, but me and I live in Aspen, but a lot of friends get married, dog, kid, want a garage or a place to park, which you can't always find in Aspen. You move to Basalt or Carbondale and get a little yard and a fence. And under $1 million.
How much of a commute is that if I work in Aspen and I live in Carbondale? How far?
Basalt is 13 to 17 miles, depending on where. Let's call it a 20 to 25 minute drive. And very easy in the summer and fall, a little slower or a little more difficult in the winter, but people do it every day. A lot of our workers commute. We have an exceptional transportation system up and down the valley. It's extraordinary, the quantity and the quality of the buses and the liquid natural gas buses and now electric buses that are all covered by taxes, and they're free actually to people in Snowmass and Aspen to get people around. And something that I hope Torre would mention, but we try to be green. Aspen Skiing Company does. We offset our gases and electricity through other means back into the power grid. But there's also free on-demand little electric cars that come and pick you up like Uber. It happens to be called Downtowner. The city pays for it, meaning lodging and tourist dollars. And if somebody doesn't want to walk from one of Jim's events or around, beep, 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 it comes up. And I think last year was over $600,000 that the town paid for that service. And of course you tip if you choose to, and most people do. That is a big goal of most of the towns in the county. I should say all the towns in the counties in the valley here. And that's what also attracts a lot of people, young and old alike.
This was very cool. I just thought of it as a snowman.
Guys, I got to I gotta jump.
Yeah.
I'm getting yanked.
I do
on.
too.
It's
Thank you
very
so
nice.
much,
I
Jim.
appreciate it.
Thank
And
you, Jim.
Richard,
Thank
thanks
you,
for
John.
reaching out. I enjoyed it. Look, thanks for the good job. Keep it rolling out there in New Canaan and all the rest. And by the way, I hope to see you at the June JS experience. It'll make your head spin. You
I
know?
want to come
I'll get
out
'em
there.
Yeah. All
I'm
right.
coming.
Thank
Thanks.
you,
Nice
Jim.
to see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Extremely enjoyable, but also smooth. You guys are good. I never
don't know
doubted
about
that, but you guys are good.
Thanks. All right. We'll see you around.